This video goes along with notes for quadratic formula. We've talked about the zero product property for solving. We've solved some by graphing. This method is one you can always use. And if you don't like this video, just look for quadratic formula videos on YouTube. There's probably a lot more advanced ones, but I just knew that this went along with these problems. And so when we get to use the quadratic formula, we're probably not going to factor things. Something might happen where we factor. We need to have everything in standard form. And so this is standard form. A times x squared plus bx plus c. Same standard form. When you get down to here, we need to have it in standard form with everything on one side. So we want this to be a 0, just like we were solving before. So I'm going to subtract 4. Before I do any setup. So I like to make sure this all needs to be 0. Because remember, our zero product property only works when we have stuff set equal to 0. And so the same thing happens here. We're going to find when we solve. All right, so the only thing you know is the formula. We'll give you that on a formula sheet, but you can write it down here. The formula is negative b, or the opposite of b, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And it's important that you write this out with the numbers plugged in before you try to simplify anything. So if you make a mistake, we can check. But it really is just to plug in, and this can, even if you can factor an equation to solve it, this will work as well. Okay, so let's do a couple examples. So I like to first say what A, B, and C are. So I have A is 5, B is 3, and C is negative 140. And then to solve, I'm just going to plug it in. The opposite of B, so negative 3 plus or minus, that means I'm going to have two answers at the end. B squared, might put that in parentheses in case it's a negative, minus 4 times A times C. Super important that you realize if there's two negative signs here, that's a plus. All over 2a. First step, you can simplify then from there, but you're not going from here to our answer. So you want to simplify this square root, and if you want, you can do it off to the side. I'm gonna do it off to the side. I don't have much room on this paper. So that's 9 plus, because there's two minuses here, 20 times 140 is 2,800. You can use your calculator to do that. So I have 2,809 all over 10. And so as of right now, I don't know if that's a perfect square or not. You can check to see if it is a perfect square. You can use your calculator and then start dividing it. However you use your calculator, 2809 square root. It is a perfect square, 53. Not one that you have memorized probably. So this is x equals negative 3 plus or minus 53 over 10. Now it's important to know to put this into two different answers. So we have negative 3 plus 53 over 10 and negative 3 minus 53 over 10. So that's 50 over 10. Again, use your calculator, simplify the numerator. And that's negative 56 over 10, which doesn't really, it simplifies to negative 28 over 5. You can change the decimal either way. But there's two solutions. Okay? Let's go to number 2. Now, before you start number 2, I would notice something right away. I could divide both sides by 2 and make this problem a lot easier. And maybe even if I do that, I could factor it. by guessing and checking. But they say we're practicing the quadratic formula, so let's go ahead and practice it. So in this case, A equals 1, B equals 1, and C equals negative 56. Just talking about the coefficients. If we had a 2, 2, and negative 112, it's the same, works the same as well. Okay, so x equals the opposite of b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. This is, I'm going to simplify this off to the side. So 1 squared is 1. Negative 4 times 1 is negative 4 times 56 is 224. And again, there's a minus here and a minus here, so that becomes a plus. So that's 225. How nice. Negative 1 plus and minus 15 over 2, because the square root of 225 is 15. Two answers, negative 1 plus 15 over 2, negative 1 minus 15 over 2. That's 14 over 2, which is 7. That's negative 16 over 2, which is negative 8. All the way back up here, if you wouldn't have been doing this on the quadratic formula paper, you might have saw that you could have gone b plus and b minus and done some guessing and checking. So plus 8 minus 7, and your two solutions are negative 8 and 7, which is what we got. So we're practicing quadratic formula, but you don't have to use it. Some people like to only use it once they learn it. But when there's something like an n squared, I think it's worth checking to see if you can factor it, because it is easier to factor it if you've worked on your guess and check. Let me do one of these down here. So I need to move everything over. I want everything equal to 0 so this formula actually works. Now I have some big numbers, so this is be careful using your calculator, but it's same. Everything's the same. A, B, and C. Opposite of A, or sorry, opposite of B, plus or minus square root B squared minus 4 times A times C all over 2 times A. That first step, most important thing. And then you can go and collect your terms up here. I'm going to break it down. I got a little more room here. 25, 16 times 84. Do a little bit in your head. Bust your calculator out. 1,344. Again, these are two minuses, so it becomes a plus. So I have negative 5 plus or minus square root of 1,369 over 8. And I'm going to see if 1,369 is a perfect square. I hope so. 37. So negative 5 plus or minus 37 over 8. Negative 5 plus 37 over 8. Negative 5 minus 37 over 8. It's kind of tedious. 32 over 8, which is 4, and negative 42 over 8, which is negative 21 over 4. So just as a review, before we run out of time, standard form, so ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, and then just plugging it in and being awfully careful. If they're in a wonky form like this, you get everything on one side of the equation, so you have a couple more to practice. If you can factor out a greatest common factor ahead of time, it will make your life easier. If you can do any of these without the quadratic formula, you're welcome to do that. See if you can tell. Okay, so you're going to finish the rest of those and work on what you need to.